Jimmy, to you first. We still have a bit of conjecture around this top order, but we have learned that at least we have some clarity around whether it is Weatherald or Renshaw.
Yeah, absolutely. Jake Weatherall was one of the names read out. In a 15-person squad, we did tip that a little early this morning. We thought it would be a little bit wider so that the national selectors could cover for all contingencies, one of those being, of course, the fitness of Cam Green, which we'll get to in a moment. But Jake Weatherall, certainly a weight of runs last year, was the leading Sheffield Shield run scorer, 900 plus, an average of just over 50, and started this summer pretty decently as well, a 90-odd there, one of 3 half-centuries scored. And really, that last 18 to 24-month period and the weight of runs, as they say all the time, a batter's currency is runs, and he's certainly got plenty of those in the bank. So that has been enough to convince the 3-person selection committee, Tony Doddermaid, the coach Andrew McDonald, of course, the chair of selectors George Bailey, who we heard from just a little earlier, that Jake Weatherald is certainly earned his spot. So it is now most likely he will partner Usman Khawaja at the top of the order. It's been long signalled that Sam Constas, the incumbent opener, his position was up for grabs, and that's the way it's been played out. So Jake Weatherall beating out Matt Renshaw, which might not have gone down too well this side of the border, given we are in Queensland. And he was certainly on the thoughts of many, including Steve Waugh, who we heard from earlier today. But Jake Weatherall, yes, it looks like he has now got a lock on that opening position alongside Usman Khawaja. The rest of the top 6, one position in particular, does rest on that of Cameron Green, because Weatherall we look like it's got the opening spot. Marnus Labuschagne could still fill that spot if need be, but it's a big if, and it's all around the fitness of Cam Green.
Yeah, we'll get onto that shortly, and really interesting that George Bailey might have to slip out the side door there up in Queensland because, yes, Matt Renshaw overlooked. But I think it sends a really good message. I think the selectors have pulled the right rein here, because with Weatherall being the leading run scorer last season in the Sheffield Shield, a phenomenal average, runs on the board, started this season very, very well indeed. It sends a great message to players around the country that if you do perform in the Shield, that the national selectors are actually taking notice of those runs. Alex, so if it is Weatherald at the top of the order in Perth, so we've got another uncapped opener next to Usman Khawaja, is that when you're looking from an England perspective at the team sheet, you're going, right, we have to get into this guy and not let him get set in the series?
I'm at 100%, because with Marnus Labuschagne's return to form, suddenly Australia's top order, which had such a question mark hanging over it for much of the year, is looking a lot more solid. You know, even Khawaja found some runs recently as well. Steve Smith looks really good this season. So those 3 key batters for Australia, immensely experienced, all of them, suddenly looking much more solid. You know, all batters, particularly in the test arena, get found out at a certain age, no matter how good they are. We've seen that happen to the best, whether it's Australia or England, India. I think those 3 are showing they're not past their peak yet. And I don't want to give them the commentator's curse, or maybe I do. But
exactly.
Yeah, I think they'll be looking, you know, England's bowlers at any weakness they can. Everyone's talked a lot about baseball, but even before McCullum came into the management setup, England were at their best when they worked out specific bowling plans for specific batters. That's how the Michael Vaughan squad 2 decades ago managed to finally get the Ashes back after 2 previous decades of Australian dominance. So they'll be looking particularly at Jake Weatherall, if he's a debutant there, and saying that's someone we need to claim early.
So much pressure. So Marnus, Jimmy, you think is a lock for the team. So it's just whether he opens or bats number 3. And we heard from George Bailey there saying if you bat 3, you can open. It's fine. He has no question marks. So let's move the conversation on to Cameron Green / Bo Webster. That equation is still live. What has to play out there? And do you think that Cameron Green, his bowling is going to be of a standard enough for them to throw him into the first test as the all-rounder and jettison Bo Webster, who's really done nothing wrong?
Well, it is the big question, Luke, and we won't know these answers really until more next week. That is the 4th round of the Sheffield Shield. It's another opportunity for Cameron Green to play, but moreover, it is the first opportunity for us to see him bowling, and those loads will be somewhere around the 10 to 15 over mark. That's what George Bailey is hopeful of seeing, and that's what he thinks is realistic. Now, behind the scenes, and it's been a deliberate ploy from Cricket Australia to keep his development on that very point, pretty much behind closed doors. So behind the prying eyes of cameras, Cameron Green has been doing the work, bowling in and around matches, just not in them. so that he can prepare without that added scrutiny. Well, next week it's going to be on show for everyone because it is clear. Cameron Green in this team, their best 11 is Cameron Green filling that all-rounder position. To do that, he simply has to be available to bowl that many overs, potentially, in a test innings. So we're going to know a lot more about that after that Sheffield Shield next week, whether he gets those bowling loads through and then how the body responds, because that will answer a big question that everyone's looking at answer to. Because if he can't, and he is to retain a spot in the batting order, it's going to be up the top. Where is that? Most likely at 3. Steve Smith, we know, is more favoured at 4, and the captain will get what he wants. So Marnus Labuschagne, if he's returning, he will then open the batting, and Jake Weatherall will have to cool his heels. So as you can see, it's got so many ramifications this last round of the Sheffield Shield. 14 of the Aussie players picked in this 15-person squad are actually taking part for their respective states. So Cameron Green, though, by all of them, are the ones that we're all focused on. If he gets through, bowls okay, you'd have to certainly say he's got to be the all-rounder. Bo Webster, very unlucky to miss out, but the best Australian 11, I think most people would agree, in terms of full lineup and batting order, is Cameron Green filling out the number 6 role as the all-rounder.
And Alex, it's such a crucial decision because, I mean, take the fact that Ben Stokes is the England captain away. We've seen what happens when an all-rounder breaks down in tests and the impact it can have. And England has experienced that with Ben Stokes multiple times where he hasn't been able to bowl. So this decision around Cam Green, it's not flippant. It's actually very crucial.
And I can still see a scenario where both are in the team, actually. I think it's really noticeable that Mitch Marsh was left out. And not only that, but George Bailey kind of scoffed at the idea of him even being in the equation and in the discussion when he has been in such good form. And there was a point maybe a month or so back when Australia were thinking, who's going to step up of our senior, of our known batters, who is going to step up? So if Cam Green's bowling next week does not go well, and George Bailey specifically mentioned that in the press conference about how crucial it was to see Green getting overs under his belt next week. If that doesn't happen or doesn't go well, but they still think Cam Green's batting is essential to be in there, I could see Weatherall missing out. I could see Marnus being shoved back up there.
Definitely.
Cam Green going back to 3. He's more experienced than when they tried it the first time around. And then Bo Webster has got a place suddenly. And I think that actually Australia would probably look quite solid.
Yeah, indeed. Just to Jimmy, we got an update on Pat Cummins and where he is at. And you asked George Bailey as well about just sort of what role he's going to play around this squad.
Yeah, he's certainly going to be in Perth, but unfortunately for Australia, he won't be playing. But we have known that for some time. The good news is Pat has steadily been increasing his own bowling loads. Our cameras caught him, of course, early last week. His very first efforts in the nets back in Sydney at Cricket Central, the training base of New South Wales, where we saw him, yes, only gingerly off a few steps, but the early signs were good. Now we're hearing more encouraging signs that those loads are increasing. The pace is also matching that. And we will see him in Perth working with the team in the nets as he continues to build up those loads. Now, there is, yes, definitely our first test. Second test is 9 days after that in Brisbane. There is some hope that there is enough of a runway there for Pat Cummins to play. It may be dictated a little bit after the first test and where the series sits. If Australia leads 1-0, perhaps they can err on the side of caution and push his return out. You get the feeling perhaps they're building towards that third test in Adelaide. That'll give him a much bigger runway to get the loads up, make sure that when he is bowling that the body recovers well afterwards, and there's no hints of these lumbar stress fractures, because he is so crucial not only in the short-term team for this Ashes series, but certainly in the next 12, 18, 24 months ahead, because there is so much cricket in that, and Pat Cummins certainly wants to be a big part of that. But for the here and now, more encouraging signs that Pat is on the right track. It doesn't sound like there's any missteps or any hiccups thus far, and everyone's got their fingers and toes crossed. Maybe not Alex and his countrymen, but certainly on this side of the globe, he'll be ready at some point. And you would say, if you're reading between the lines, more likely third test if that's the way the series plays out. And, of course, Pat's recovery continues at the pace it is.
So England would have to be cheering that Pat isn't there. You do have to face Scott Boland. But I just want to ask you about the Sam Constas question. So I mean, that's the other big headline from this squad, and we knew it was coming, that Sam Constas officially dropped. Do you think England would have liked him to have been there? Would they have seen him as a weak link?
Yeah, I think they'd have preferred to face Constas, to be honest. And there's always the chance that, because Sam Constas the reason he got into the squad in the first place and into the team to start with was his kind of big match mentality. He had a bit of a swagger about him in the way that all great Aussie batsmen have done down the years. But you can't argue with the run. 229 runs in 6 innings this season, an average of 25, highest score of 53.
Needed more.
It's just not enough.
Yeah.
And I think Australia were right to be brutal. He needs to follow what Marnus Labuschagne did. If junior players are going to learn from the senior batters, just see how Marnus Labuschagne responded to being left out of the team. Just went back to the drawing board, got back to just being very solely focused on thinking one delivery at a time. Let's not preempt it.
Yeah,
and
let's not ramp on two.
No, 100%. And yeah, look, I think it's going to boil down to actually, I don't think bowling for Cummins for me is not a weakness at all.
Yeah.
And I think Jim's absolutely right.
It's an outrageous luxury.
Why such a good luxury? And you know, and even Abbott and Brendan Dockett aren't bad backups behind that. Why rush Cummins back? Absolutely what Jim said. Just see how.
Leave him out for the series, you're saying. I just want to, before we move on from Constas, this is what the chairman of selectors, George Bailey, had to say about the reasons for sending Sam back to Sheffield Shield cricket for the time being.
Not confirmed in the 11, so obviously I think we've got 14 out of that 15-man squad playing round 4. Still some information to gather out of that. You know, Cameron Green being one, returning to the bowling crease, so that'll be good. So no, that's the squad. We'll work through the 11 as we get closer. And then what's impressed me, asked about Jake. I think if you look at his performance over 18, 24 months, it's been really solid. And then there's a method there that I think is that we like and is complementary to those other players around him in the squad. You know, scores at a good rate. The way he goes about building his innings has been impressive.
All right, let's take a look at England's squad. And they've started arriving in Perth ahead of the first test on November 21. Alex, this is the side and the squad that is going into battle against the Aussies. What do we need to know?
I think there are real question marks over England's batting and bowling. That was made me think of that famous quote about there's only 3 things wrong with the England team. They can't bat, they can't bowl, they can't field. They're obviously better than that. Yeah, Jim was right to mention Ben Stokes' fitness to start with. He's an inspirational skipper when he's on form. If he can turn his arm over as well and chip in with the bat the way we know he can, and sometimes in spectacular fashion, I think England need to have big series from Harry Brook and Jacob Bethell particularly. I think they can probably, without wishing to curse it, rely on Joe Root to do what Joe Root does. But also a huge question mark over Wood and Archer coming back.
Yeah.
They're massively fast, massively dangerous bowlers when they're on form. They both just come back from injury this year. I mean, that is a serious question mark.
It's a huge ask.
If they both break down and Stokes also struggles, England are
You might get a call up at that. You're going to be the only Englishman left.
I was down the nets the other day. No, they're really going to look weak, actually.
Yeah.
So I think England have more questions to answer in that first test than Australia.
Yeah. Let's hear from those 2 men themselves, Mark Wood and Jofra Archer.
How was the flight? Okay?
Yeah, it was okay, not too bad.
What's the preparation like for the next couple of days?
I got the next week off, so you might need to ask the other guys, but I don't got anything on for the next week.
So no plans in Perth at all? Go to the beach or anything?
Oh yeah, whatever to pass some time.
Good luck for the Ashes. Excited to be in Perth?
Yeah, excited to be here. Can't wait to get going soon, so yeah, really happy.
And pumped for the Ashes as well?
Obviously, that's what we're here for, so can't wait to hopefully bring the win home.
Hey, looking forward to the fast, bouncy wicket here at the Optus Stadium as well?
Yeah, I've played here before. It is fast and bouncy, so hopefully that plays in our hands.
And how do you think you guys will go overall?
Oh, yet to win. I think it'll be a great series. Both teams, play entertaining cricket, so I think it'll be a great series.
All right, Jimmy, just finally, and Alex, I will give you the right of reply on this question. Come the end of this series, are we talking about Bazball being a positive for the tourists or their undoing?
Are we going with Alex first or are we going with me? All right, we'll go with me. I think the Australian way, I was just trying to be kind to you, Alex. The Australian way, well, we all hope it is going to be the one that wins out. I mean, that's the narrative we're all shaping. Certainly not one that George Bailey was keen to buy into, despite a little bit of added prodding from me late in that press conference just a short time ago. But it is the narrative we're talking about because Bazball, they say they revolutionised the game perhaps by their method to it a few years ago. Many in Australia would say, Well, that's how Australia have actually been playing Test cricket for some time. Well, now we get to decide over 5 gripping tests, and that's why it is a Test series, because it tests everyone over these 5 gripping matches that are going to be fast approaching come November 21. I think the big question about England is they have absolutely laid it out. They are coming to attack, both with their batting, but more in particularly with their bowling. They are fully stocked with an arsenal like never before, arguably the quickest in world cricket, depending who they name in each match 11. But if Mark Wood and Jofra Archer can hold together and get through a series, it is going to put the Australian top 6 under an enormous amount of pressure. And we saw what happened when Jasprit Bumrah caught fire last summer. One man almost beat Australia in that series last year. Well, England are coming with 2 express pacemen. It is going to be an epic contest. If Australia can put overs into the legs of those 2 players. Remember, Mark Wood's mid-30s, hasn't played Test cricket since last year. Jofra Archer only returned this year, and that was only a handful of tests.
You're spoiling it now, Jim. I was preferring that previous vision that he was laying out there of them absolutely on fire, ripping into Australia's top order. Look, I think Jim's laid it out perfectly. England are a team moulded in their captain's image. Yeah. Ben Stokes only knows one way, and that is front foot always. Attack, attack, attack. And if they get it right and Australia match it with their equally good ability to attack as well, that's what we're really looking forward to. That's when it's going to get so mouth-watering. Yeah. And I absolutely can't wait for it. I think it's a question of who's going to duck first, almost, in that scenario. It's better to do that in Australian conditions, I think. Australia's batters and bowlers have better experience of that. We were talking earlier about Mark Wood, one of the few who knows how to do it on Australian soil. That's why there's so many question marks over England. But they will absolutely not back down. That's why Australia have really dominated the Ashes in recent series, those 2 drawn series, and winning it here. England, it's a huge ask for them to get it back.
I don't think Bazball will work in these conditions, but that's just my 2 cents. Jimmy, up on the Gold Coast, thank you for today. Great work. Alex, as always, we look forward to speaking to you throughout the course of the summer. He's hoping it's still live. Day 5, Test 5 in Sydney, and we've had a great series under our belts. Live on Fox Cricket, of course. Thanks to Jim and Alex.